Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats, weekly podcast episode number 33. I'm your host, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan, and this is the world's very first podcast fully dedicated 110% every day to the art, craft, history, and tradition of wooden boats. Actually, to celebrating the art, craft, history, and tradition of wooden boats. Welcome to the show today. It's great to have you here. And we're going to have fun today as usual. I'm sitting in my home office on a cold, wet day in the Pacific Northwest. It's about 46 degrees and raining. I would prefer sun here, but, if we had a lot of sun, you'd probably have overpopulation in this area. So I guess that keeps the population down. Great place for boating, though, even when the weather's not good. Today's featured segment is an interview I did with Chris Finks. Chris is the founder of the Maritime Heritage Coalition in Portland, Oregon. He's also the owner of a 36-foot Chris Craft Constellation, which is a wood-planked boat built in the early 60s. And so Chris is going to talk about his boating experiences and his boats and talk about the Maritime Heritage Coalition in Portland. So stick around for that interview. I think you're going to like it. Well, last weekend I had a great weekend. I went to Portland with my wife. It's about 230 miles from where we live. My wife had a class to go to, and she had to be there at 8:30 in the morning. So we left home at 4 o'clock, which is pretty early for me. Usually I sleep in till at least 5 or 6. But anyway, we left at 4 o'clock, and I dropped my wife off at the class, and then I went over to the Portland Yacht Club and met Chris Finks, who's in my interview today. And Chris was kind enough to take me around to meet various people at the Portland Yacht Club at their boathouses where they're storing boats. I met Chuck Kellogg, who's restoring or has restored a couple of bridge deck boats that were built in the 20s and 30s, fabulous boats. Then I was able to hook up with a gentleman who's got a 55-foot Chris Craft Constellation wooden plank boat, absolutely gorgeous. So I got to hang out at the Portland Yacht Club, and Chuck's been a member of the Portland Yacht Club since he was a kid. And so he had a lot of cool stories to tell. So I took pictures, and then Chris and I sat outside and had lunch and did an interview with Chris. It was really a fun weekend. I was a little tired by the time we got home, but had a good time. I would love it if you would connect with me. You can do so on Facebook, Twitter, or Pinterest if you look for Wooden Boat Dan there. Or you can email me, Dan at hookedonwoodenboats.com. You can leave a comment on my website, hookedonwoodenboats.com. And I would also love it if you would go to iTunes and subscribe to my podcast there. If you go to the podcast section and search for Hooked on Wooden Boats, you'll find me. And also, if you enjoy the show, which hopefully you do, you could leave me a 5-star review there. That would be awesome. The more people we can get online there with reviewing the podcast, giving a good review, the more listeners we'll get. And that's the whole goal, is to have some free entertainment for people about wooden boats. One thing I wanted to mention, which I mentioned a couple weeks ago, is 3 Sheets Northwest has a new search engine on their website for looking up all kinds of maritime fun stuff about boat schools, that's a hard word to say, chandleries, historic districts, lighthouses, locks, boats, places of interest, sawmills, all kinds of maritime stuff. It's a really cool search engine there. If you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/maritime heritage, that will direct you to their website, and I would recommend you go there. It's a lot of fun to look stuff up that way. Well, in my 12-foot sassafras canoe, I got all the panels glued up, so now I have 10 full panels, and so my next step is to stitch those together. And I think I'm going to use baling wire because it's cheaper than copper, but maybe after I do that I'll find out that I should have really used copper for some reason, but I can't think of why. So I'm going to try baling wire, and if you get this, if you listen to this podcast soon and you think there's a reason not to use it, please shoot me an email, okay? I would love some advice on that if you have it, an opinion or whatever. And also check out my website. If you go to episode 32, I've got a list of upcoming events. Center for Wooden Boats this weekend, May 4th and 5th, is having an open house at their new facility. May 12th and 13th is the Wooden Boat Fair in Olympia, Washington. May 9th is the Pocket Yachters Palooza in Port Townsend. Lots of fun stuff coming up, so please check it out. Okay, we're going to jump into the interview now with Chris Finks. As I mentioned before, Chris is the founder of the Maritime Heritage Coalition, a wooden boat lover. He's got a 36-foot Chris Craft built in the 60s out of wood that he's been working on. And so we're going to get going here, so take it away, Chris. Okay, it's April 28th. I'm at the Portland Yacht Club in Portland, Oregon with Chris Finks. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We've been together 2 or 3 hours now.
Right. We even bought you lunch, so we made it worth
it. He bought me lunch. We've been looking at really cool wooden boats, having a good time. I really appreciate it. So let's see, where do we start here, Chris? Maybe tell me about your boating background and how you got interested in wooden boats and so on.
Well, you know, it's there's an indirect and a direct thing, I guess. And you know, indirectly, I have my great aunt's husband, my great uncle, but not by blood, by my marriage. So she was my blood relative.
Yeah.
His name was John Alexander McDonald, and he was a naval architect and shipbuilder in San Francisco.
Really?
And I remember seeing his tools. They're in the museum, at the Maritime Museum in San Francisco. And I have his, interestingly enough, I have his wristwatch that I wear.
Cool.
And so I like to say through osmosis that this whole thing about boats, and obviously during his time, a lot of the boats he was involved with were wooden. Mm-hmm. And I never met him. He died a few years before I was born. So I never met Uncle Al. That's what we called him. And so fast forward, and I'm a kid. I'm born in the mid-'60s, and so there's one of my neighbors. He taught me how to ride a bike, and Fred Sutton was his name, and he had a wooden Century ski boat, a resorter. And when I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, I learned how to ski off the back of that ski boat. Mm-hmm. And with his daughter, he had a very cute daughter, and even at 5 years old, I had that figured out, I guess. But anyway, we went water skiing on the back of that boat, and it always kind of stuck with me. What really stuck with me is when he sold it, and he got his brand new boat and his brand new car, and he said to the towing vehicle, "What do you think?" And I said, "I like the old boat better."
Because the new boat was fiberglass.
His new was fiberglass. Yeah. It wasn't wood. His wood was gone by then. And, you know, a matter of 5 years from that boat that he had when I was about 5 or 6 years old was a 5 or 6 year old boat.
Yeah.
But it was wooden then. It was a wooden Century boat. And so my next door moved fast forward in another neighborhood growing up, and where I spent junior high and high school years. And my parents' next door neighbor, Dennis Claude Rowe, and they had a home in Tahoe, and he had a homemade wooden boat, a speedboat, go fast boat that he had called Hang On, and then he bought a 1953 Hacker boat called the Tahoe Torpedo, and it was always the boat's name. It was one of the so-called observation boats that he had actually ridden in as a kid. So he buys this boat for 5 years back storage because the people couldn't pay their storage bill. So he buys this, and they restore this boat, which was a very special configuration. It was a triple cowl that was configured into just a twin cowl boat with a Chrysler Hemi engine in it. So anyway, I helped out a little bit with flipping the boat over and the boy, all that stuff. And my father worked with him every night for 9 months in the garage restoring that boat.
Now, what's an observation boat?
Well, he called it that, and guess what it meant was that you paid a couple bucks and got to take a ride on Lake Tahoe.
Oh, okay.
So he remembered that as a boy that this boat was that, and it's quite a beautiful boat, and very unusual. So that boat, this is probably 1990, 91, I think, somewhere around there. It after they worked on that boat for all that time, he got it in the water and just used it for a season, and then it won in its class at Tahoe.
Wow.
That year. And now I don't know that it would. Well, it's the restoration's aged now, but even the standards are so much different than they were then, probably. Clearly an amateur restoration, but two guys who were very fastidious about what they did, and the boat was phenomenal, and it always stuck with me, and I don't know what it was about it. And I had a sailboat then, moved to the East Coast, and got we were my wife, then girlfriend, and or fiance, and our wedding. It's funny. Boats have always been a part of my life, I guess. And for our wedding, we were loaned a big boat for our wedding, and our friends got to we took her out. They had a captain, and they took us around out in the West Coast in it, and blah blah blah. And so, that was a wooden boat. So, and then the other was when we lived in D.C. I somehow make friends with this group of guys that owned the Sequoia. The Sequoia was a presidential yacht.
Oh, really?
And it was on the Potomac River. And so we had a dinner on board that boat, and with a group of about 15 people. And the boat's spectacular. I mean, Roosevelt was on board there. Nixon made a decision to resign on there. JFK spent one of his last birthdays on there.
Really?
Truman. I mean, I think it was from Hoover through Carter, who liquidated the boat. Mm-hmm. So this group of guys bought it and have a foundation now. So anyway, we were on board that, and it's such a spectacular boat. And I even got to spend time with just my brother. Our brother was visiting one time when we lived in Washington, D.C. And we got to spend time alone on the boat with just the captain. So those things, I guess, kind of sink into you. And fast forward several years later, and I'm on a business trip I had taken my family, and we're in Victoria, British Columbia, and I'm staying at the Empress, and it was a Labor Day weekend, and little unbeknownst to us, there was a wooden boat show. Because at that point,
Oh, you weren't there for the show. You just happened to be there.
Yeah, just happened to be there. And so my wife goes, "Oh my gosh, did you see what's out there? Let's go." So we went down, and they had Esther Williams, the famous... Steve, how you doing?
Pretty good, Chris. How are you?
Good. That Esther Williams boat was there, and all these great boats. Where my wife turns to me, she sees this really pretty 1940s vintage Chris Craft and says, "I want to buy you one day. I'll buy you one." She says, "Maybe next summer or something." And she did. So we end up. So we go to a boat show, and
what boat show was it?
It was here in Portland, just across the way here on the island, on Tomahawk Island or Hayden Island, Tomahawk Bay, the Anti-Classical Boat Society. I've been looking for a boat at that point pretty seriously, and they had a wooden boat show, and I show up there. This guy here that you just met, Val Brown, was with me. He's the guy that was with me.
Oh, really?
And we had a couple of gin and tonics.
Let's pause it here for just a second. Okay, we're back, Chris.
So the fellow you met, Val Brown, a minute ago was with me, and his wife and my son, and my wife met us later, and we go to this thing. It's Father's Day weekend, and we go over this thing, and I had the evening before, I had on the PT boat was there the evening before for this barbecue thing, and that's why we had gone back the second day. And so anyway, show up, and the great great grandson of Chris Smith, who founded Chris Craft, I had met him there, and we ended up we're good friends. We became friends. Said, "You've got to go look at this boat, because this guy, it's a sportsman, great for your family. You should go look at it. Very solid. Yeah, and maybe needs some varnish here and there, but it's in pretty good shape. You should think about it." And the guy really needs to get rid of it. He has financial.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just wait till the fighter jets come over.
Okay, jet's gone over. We'll keep going here, Chris.
So, anyway, long story. He says, "You got to go do this." Called the guy, and he shows up there, and he says, "Make me an offer." So I make him this offer. What was a ridiculous offer? And he said, "Well, how about $500 more," which is half of what this guy was willing to take.
This is for the 18-foot.
The 18-foot Sportsman, 1947 Sportsman, utility style. And U18139 was its number and whole number, and delivered also, interestingly enough, and a day apart, but years later, 23 years prior. Or actually, no, is that right? 17 years prior to the boat that I have now, the big boat that I have now. So anyway, I make this offer. The guy takes it. And my wife had said that she'd buy me a boat. It was bought on Father's Day, so the boat's name became Father's Day.
Oh, nice.
And it was 18 feet, and it had been repowered. It originally had a Chrysler engine in it, straight six in it, flathead, and it had been repowered in somewhere in the 50s with a 283 Marinized V8, which Chris Craft was famous for those V8s, and so which is a honey of a motor. So I had that boat for 5 or 6 years, and I did. I wooded it down, some planks, and I had a guy named Mike Mayer with Lake Oswego Boat Company help do some. We took it down and restained it, bleached it. And she was just perfect. Mm-hmm. Dashboard was put back the way that it was in original instruments, back to the 40s, and fast, fun boat. Well, and the thing is it's interesting is, President Kennedy said when he went to Paris one time, Jackie was with him because I'm the guy that accompanied Jackie to Paris, and that was how we felt every time we went with that boat anywhere. We'd pull up over here in Island Cafe here on the island. You pull up, there'd be a crowd of people. It's like, excuse us, move out of the way. We were immaterial. It was the boat was a star. It made my wife a little crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
But I had a guy actually tell me, he said, "Can you excuse me, because I'm trying to get pictures of this boat and you're in my way." I said, and I kind of laughed a little bit. And I said, and so I let him do it, and then I bent over and I said, "God," he goes, what are you doing getting out of the boat?" I go, "It's my boat." He goes, "I am so sorry." So anyway, we really enjoyed that, and my wife always wanted a cruiser. We ended up buying a 1960 Constellation that was delivered here new.
Chris Craft Constellation.
Yes, Chris Craft Constellation. Should probably talk in longer. Chris Craft Constellation, and it CXA 36138. Interesting whole number, because I had the little boat was 139, different series, and delivered a day apart.
Oh wow!
In terms of the month of May, and the difference is the first boat was a Southern Belle, was delivered to Mobile, Alabama, to the family that had the Cadillac dealership down there.
Okay.
And this boat, I don't know who the first owner is. I'm still trying to figure that out. But it was a Portland Yacht Club boat for many years.
Okay.
Always inside, delivered to Staff Jennings in May of 1960. And so we've enjoyed that, and it's didn't start out to be a big restoration product. It started out to be a little bit of, let's get it correct and freshen up some of the paint finishes, but it was really dry bilge, very nice. Yeah. A friend of mine found it, and we had it 3 weeks, and unfortunately a good friend of mine I was using the head, he major accident, cut a corner and hit a piling and did some massive damage. about 18 months ago. So we've gone through a process of rebuilding her. I had an option because I had the boat so little of time. As appraisals go with many of these classic boats, as you know, with the cruisers, had been in a free fall for a while in terms of values. The runabout's not as much, like the Chris Craft Scarwood type of runabouts in Centuries. And Chris Craft is a premium brand name, and Constellation still holds weight, but I had purchased it right, probably too right, and the appraisal was okay, but the improvements that we had made hadn't caught up with the value yet, and so it ended up being a total. I just, at that point, anybody that's listening to this is hooked on wooden boats would understand that I just couldn't live with myself to think that I was going to be responsible for killing a boat that had lived almost 50 years.
Send it over to the grinder.
I couldn't do it.
Watch them grind it up.
My wife couldn't do it. My son, who at that time was probably not quite 10, was crying, says, "Don't kill the boat, Daddy, don't kill the boat."
Oh, man.
So the pressure was on me, and I had experts come over, and they said, it's not a condition problem, it's damaged. The boat's phenomenal. It's an insurance valuation issue that would have been corrected itself if it had only been 2 months later. It would have been different. So I saved it, and it's been a long road. It's been the biggest frustration has been an engine issue, and with cooling with the 283 Maritime engines and figuring that out, and many thousands of dollars later on that issue. I think we've got it licked, and we'll be on the water this summer. She's in the water, but she'll be functioning, and it's given us the time to do some research and finding out what was correct on her and not. She's restored to. She's finished the way she was in 1960, and there's some licenses that we have to take because of safety, and the finishes are no longer available, like the galley counter, for example. And the cooktop was an alcohol cooktop, and we have a propane cooktop. There's been some of that.
Yeah.
That it's just smart to do it that way.
Right.
But she's great, and we're looking forward to doing it. So.
Cool, Chris. I hope that goes well for you. You're getting to the end of the road, so that's awesome.
It's all great.
Out in the river in a month or two here.
Well, you haven't seen. You've talked to some other friends today.
Yeah.
And you've seen longer term projects than mine. So
yeah, a lot longer. Yeah, totally. So a year or two or 5 years ago or something, you helped found an organization called the Maritime Heritage Coalition. Is that correct?
Well, about the organization is not quite a year old.
Oh, it's not quite a year old.
No.
Okay.
Going back 5 years ago, what happened was we had founded a Maritime Heritage Festival. I was the founder of that.
Oh, okay.
And the festival was held in Portland for 3 years, and the last year we had about 10,000 people that came out, and we had World War II vessels with stern wheeler, we had water skiing shows, we had reenactments of 1850s naval activities, we had bands, we had food, water skiing shows, regatta, log rolling, tours of the PT boat was a very big favorite there, and a concourse. The Judge Concourse. Our sponsor then was Alaska Airlines. That flew in Brian Robinson and who's a renowned expert on boats and judging, and so we had a dream team of judges from all over the country who flew in to do that.
Wow!
And the goal was to really sort of up that ante, but the purpose of it was this area has largely ignored or begun to ignore its maritime heritage, which built the area. Arguably, the railroad did too, obviously. Mm-hmm. But what discovered this area was the seaports and the tall ships, George Vancouver or Captain Cooch and any of those men. So you bring that together and something that's. And also, what was also missing is a tribal component of it, because I'd say that the joke has been somewhat, it's like, well, we were the first Navy. And so they're involved with us now, but what happened out of that was sort of catalytic because it brought everybody together. And I was a wooden boat guy. I had classic Chris Craft, as I'd mentioned to you, my little sportsman, and got a whole lot of people to get to know each other, different organizations from the yacht clubs and the rowing groups and whatnot, and
through the festival.
Yeah. And so a few years later, so about a year. And then we ended up incorporating a year ago, was we met and said, wouldn't it be interesting if we pulled together our resources? Because many of them are just living hand to mouth. And you have Oregon Maritime Museum that has, it's really just the sternwheeler, and they have, which is a phenomenal vessel. It's very well maintained, and I think you're on board.
Yeah, I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and
let's pause here for a second. Okay, we're back.
Commercial break.
Yeah, commercial break.
Brought to you by Continental Airlines overhead. So, at any rate, kind of a lot of these groups, the PT boat, which is pretty tightly wrapped organization. I'd say they've done an amazing job of restoring the vessel and that. But one of the things that's tough for them is being able to share it because it's on a base. And so that's one thing. And then you have the LCI, and then you have a variety of other vessels on wooden boat shops and so on. I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we brought everybody together into under one roof, so to speak? And so what came out of that was this Maritime Heritage Coalition. Okay. And it is it's a non-profit corporation, and we've have had help with the legal counsel in forming that, a non-profit law firm out of Eugene, non-profit support services, and have our first board of directors in election last June, and had incorporated. And the purpose is to celebrate, promote, and preserve native and maritime heritage of our area. And that's really pretty broad, but that's exactly what it does. Yeah. And so one of those ways in the short term we do that is to resurrect the Maritime Festival, Heritage Festival, which will be this July 13th through the 15th in Old Town, St. Helens, Oregon. Great venue in a historic old town with phenomenal docks that are new, probably 6-year-old docks that are very, very
How close to Portland is that, Chris?
Oh, it's 29 miles
so
from
it's
Portland.
Close to Portland, Oregon.
About 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And by water, it's maybe a little bit longer, the 20-30 minutes by water, but it's for a lot of the boat, by big boat, and the bigger boats, the sailboats and stuff. It's somewhat Main Street there. It's a big sailing area, kayaking area, famous for that, fishing area, and that. So our view is a really great location. The city's been really wonderful to us, and the fees, in particular, in helping us through the logistical piece.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is. It's free there's no admission fee. It's free to the public to come, and it's all, we raise our money through sponsorships, and there's a dinner that's sponsored by the event. The title sponsor is the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and they'll also be hosting a dinner, a VIP dinner on that Saturday night, the 14th of July, and that's for the boat owners that come in. They do pay a modest registration fee of $20 to bring their boat, and then, which is not much at all. And then the dinner is $30, and we'll do a People's Choice Award that we'll have the public vote on it. The group really kind of wanted to not do the concourse this time around. It's a lot to manage, and they would prefer not to. So we're not doing that, and so we're pretty ecstatic. Great things about this is for all boats of all.
Okay, we're back again.
I got to talk. We have to have a discussion with Continental. They're really liking to fly over us. But so the great thing for the boat owners there is that we have lots of room for docks, and we've got lots of great participation already. So you saw almost all a lot of the big boats today that were there. The stern wheeler will be there. We've got some excursion boats happening. The World War II vessels, the stern wheeler, which is 220 feet long, I'd mentioned, and the PT boat and the LCI will be there, and lots of the Chris Crafts. But the great thing is that for the smaller boats in particular, is that there's a boat launch 3 blocks away, so they can launch and there's free trailer parking. They can park the trailer. It's all right there. And the marina will be giving a 20 cent per gallon discount to all those that are bringing their boats, which is very generous, and no boat launch fee.
Nice.
So we have really great proximity to fuel dock, great, attractive fuel pricing, in a no-wake zone, permanent no-wake zone. So one of the issues we found in other locations, and that would be Portland, is that we would apply for no-wake zone, but it was really almost impossible for the authorities to enforce it. And we'd have lots of rocking and people going through there very fast. Yeah. So it was. This is, I think, my view is to be a really great venue for us. So we'll have displays on the land and on the water. Lots of things to do. Children. We'll have bands, music, food, wine, Northwest beers, and we're pretty happy about that. Yeah, so that's the short term. The long term is that we want to build a maritime center. Okay. And we're looking at several sites, and
Portland had that flavor.
Some of them are in Portland, around the on the east side of the Willamette River from downtown near Omsey, in that area, and then there's another one at University of Portland who has talked with us just briefly about they've recently acquired 44 acres and are interested in talking to us about that, and then another site at St. Helens, which is 17 acres of former Boise Cascade land that we understand would be available shortly. They're not manufacturing there anymore, and so we think we've got the right partners at the table, the tribal partners, and you've got a willing city, and that potentially that could work very well at any of the locations, but that is one that is very, very interesting. Lots of land there. There are a lot of the other sites, particularly in Portland. I think it's a squeeze to get 5 to 7 acres would be a squeeze.
A lot, isn't it?
It is, and very valuable land.
Yeah.
So, so that's that. And what would it be? What would the features be? Well, I think that education is a huge component, and an ecology center, one of the first riverine ecology centers, you partner with a university, for example, on for the tribal pieces of it, and for many of the industrial partners around the area, they would like to see that is an ecology institute dedicated to river ecology. So that would be something that would be a big component, and obviously that you have the string wheeler and the PT boat and all the variety of those things, which are really attractive, already exist. Yeah. And Firehouse Boat Works has an active wooden boat shop and a wooden boat school, native artifacts and canoes, and all kinds of other types of hands-on displays and things that would be part of this. A restaurant, indigenous food restaurant, is one thing. Too, that would be part of this, and other components that would be that have been discussed in conjunction. This would be an attraction such as a water feature, indoor water park type of thing, like a Great Wolf Lodge-ish type of concept, and then hotel. And I think that looking at this. As much as being we don't want to hesitate calling it a museum, as more of a center, because you'd have all kinds of active things going. You have a chandlery shop there. You have schools going on there, school trips happening, and these things.
Lots of hands-on activities and things.
Right. Yeah. But then what happens around right in it? If you have a hotel there and a convention space, you drive traffic. You have a destination restaurant that has a specialty. So. And what's the mixed-use development around it? There are condos and retail and some of those things that all support each other. Mm-hmm. So versus just dropping it in by itself. I think that seems to be something that makes sense for us. And so that you engage the professionals to do that. And we've had some conversations, and one company in particular that has built museums and attractions similar to not maybe exactly Maritime, but all over the world. In Dubai and the UK right now, they're building something for Universal in London. Harry Potter World is one of the things they're working on there. They have offices here and in Burbank and in London, and they've been really educating us. And I think so. One of the critical steps is going to be engaging somebody like, if not them, somebody like them, to help us do the planning on the curriculum, what the seasonality, impacts of seasonality are, what are all the opportunities to make this thing work. And I spent years of my life working for a retail developer, and so I understand you have to consider all those things. And what the story you tell, and to build truly a regional. If not, regional could be West Coast national type of an attraction that people would want to go to.
A destination.
It's a real destination, absolutely. Mystic Seaport's a great lesson on that, I think, too. And I think they struggle too, but Port Townsend's phenomenal. This is a little bit different animal, though. It's complementary to all those. I think they're just different. And nobody's telling a native story, and then we've got no PT story. I think it's because it's the last piece of this region that has not been told. We have a rail museum here. You have an industrial museum. You have art museums here, and we even used to have an advertising museum here, and Elvis, Church of Elvis was here, for gosh sake. So I think this is one of the last pieces that's not really told, and to me, it's part of what the brand of this area is. And
totally.
So
very cool.
That's kind of why.
So if our listeners want to find out more about that, you guys have a website up, or where can
our website will be up. Hopefully within a week. We had a little technical issue with that. We are on Facebook, Maritime Heritage Coalition on Facebook. So look for that. Our website is maritimeheritagecoalition.org. Or if they want to go to the festival, they go to the same site too. So it's maritimeheritagefestival.org or maritimeheritagecoalition.org. And so we, as I said, we had a little the server by our provider crashed, so we're recovering from that. But we have the good news is we have a lot of it backed up, and we're putting it all back together, and it's got to get up because we'll be our big put. I would really encourage people, if you have a historic boat, canoe, kayak, sailboat, rowboat, and Chris Craft or any of those things, to come out, get in touch with us, bring it out, share it. You got a whole bunch of people to fall in love with wooden boats, become hooked on them like we all are.
Exactly.
It's really a good deal. And you should please come out in July. Give us a call. It's not a lot of money. I'll guarantee you'll have a great time. Great food, great people. I've got about a bunch of emails this week alone saying they were glad to hear it's coming back. We took a little bit of time off from doing it. We had a venue change. We couldn't have, Portland was it was an expensive venue to do it, and we don't. As I mentioned to you, it's all fundraised to make this thing happen. So we could make the economics work.
So if somebody wants to contact you, what's the best way to do that, Chris? If they have questions about
Well, a great way to do that would be my email address would be maritimeHeritage@me.com. .org. .com, sorry. So it's maritimeHeritage@me.com.
Okay. That's an Apple address.
It is an Apple address, yes. Right.
Apple is good. That's my next podcast, Hooked on Apple. No, I'm kidding.
No, well, seriously. Okay. I have both. I'm hooked on wooden boats and apples. I'm a marketing guy, so it's my business, right?
Chris, any parting comments for our listeners today before we hit the road?
I want to say thanks for the time and coming down here, Dan. It's really been great, and your your interest in us, and come back again. We've got lots more to share with you.
Yeah.
And support us in our efforts with the festival. It'd be great just to come out and have a great time. And down here, and I know where you are. You're up in God's country in Puget Sound, which is heaven for wooden boat.
Yeah.
But we are. This whole region really is.
Yeah.
So come down, check us out, and that's really what I have to say. So we'll see you this summer.
Okay, great. Thanks,
right.
Chris.
Thanks.
Take care. All right. Chris, thanks for taking the time to meet with me last Saturday and show me around the Portland Yacht Club, and that was really a lot of fun, and to learn more about the Maritime Heritage Coalition and about old wooden boats. So I really appreciate it, Chris. Hope you have a great week. For my listeners, please email me if you have any questions, feedback, comments, especially if you have feedback about my shows. If there's things you'd like to see maybe do a little different, that I would do a little differently to improve the show, or give me some feedback, I would appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by going to my homepage, hookedonwoodenboats.com, clicking on the Jamestown Distributors button on the right-hand side and making a boat supply purchase. They sell epoxy and all kinds of boat building materials. And if you buy something there, I get paid a small commission. And also on my website, if you click on the resources page, there's a list of items available for sale on Amazon. If you click on any of those and go to Amazon and make a purchase of any item there, I also get paid a little bit. So if you'd like to contribute, that's a great way to do it. Next week, I'll have two interviews, one with Chuck Kellogg from the Portland Yacht Club that owns several older wooden boats built in the 30s that he's refurbished. And then I'm also going to be talking to Mark Hall, who owns a 1961 Chris Craft Constellation 55-foot boat. So please tune in again next week. Well, it's been great to have you. Thanks for checking in with Wooden Boat Dan this week. Hope you have a great week. Keep the sunny side up and the barnacled side down, and we will talk again soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.